Yeah, it is another episode of the Autumn Windbags. RJ Clifford, Juan Soto. Let's have some fun today. Recording one day early, show coming out a day early. The game was so good on Sunday that we just couldn't resist but do a show as fast as possible. Like, we were just so oozing with excitement and joy, Soto. We're like, let's get on the mics as fast as possible. Just can't.
Yeah, it's like once you get your ass kicked, you want to like get back into the ring and fight again.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, we need to start talking about some of this stuff.
Right. We got to clear some stuff up. You know, we got to get after it. So you were there, your first game at Allegiant.
Oh yeah.
You came on the post show briefly. You were running around. You had to get to a titty bar. Totally understandable. You only can give us so much time. But
I promised. They gave me a shot. They gave me a beanie. I said, you know what, ladies, I'm gonna go support. I went to a single mom fundraiser.
Mm-hmm. Future Doctors Convention.
Yes.
It helped clean up. I will say this, man. At the start of the game, it looked like it was 99% silver and black. I saw like the tiniest smatterings of Panther jerseys.
95%.
Energy was high. Volume was up. Like right when that opening kickoff happened, like it felt like a good crowd, man. It felt like a home opener of like a team that's been at their location for a long time.
It was weird because it was nothing how home games have been explained to me. Oh yeah, there's always a lot of there was hardly any. They were loud at the end, and they should have been. They kicked our ass.
Yeah, but
they all kind of like clumped up in the near the tunnel where the visitors come out. Mm-hmm. At the end of the game, so when the Panthers left the field, they all went through that little area. But there was many of them.
It's a combination of it's not like the Panthers have this like massive national fan base and then home opener,
Yeah.
Like it was that I think people coming together, and I think also all it takes is all the things they say about Allegiant Stadium in Vegas and Raider fans, it's generally true. All right, we're 4-6 and the Steelers are in town. It's it's going to be an away game. That's true. But all it takes is you just got to give this Raider fan base in Vegas the tiniest glimmer of hope. Just give us something. Just give us a little bit, right? Coming off of that Ravens upset, biggest underdogs of week 2, looking fantastic, and then the home opener. It's like Raider Nation's there. Mark Davis, if you're pissed that home stadium games, Allegiant Stadium is all fucking red Chiefs fans and blue Broncos fans, just give us a little bit. You don't even have to we want Super Bowls, we want division titles, we want conference, we want championships, but this fan base is proven. You give us just a little bit, something to root for, we show up.
Dude,
2
that
seasons
shit
ago.
was
the last Charger game, right? Week 17 of that Charger game that was electric, insane, bonkers, AFC Championship game atmosphere because it was a game of consequence. It's a game of consequence. Win and you're in. Sunday, you were there. 95% Raider fans, energy's high, all because we're coming off of one good road win. You didn't even have to other fan bases. You have to win for 5 years to get a fan base to care that much. You gave us one good win this season. Raider Nation showed up, and then you shit in our mouths.
Yeah, I think the decibel level on the meter was 119. I think I got it to 119. It was loud in there, dude. It was really loud in there. But before we go any further, I gotta say some props.
Props away.
Very big time props to the Jersey boys, to Mike and Eddie. I met them. They came up. We chopped it up a little bit. Baby Chris from Maggie's Sports Bar. She works out at the sports bar out here. I think it's in Commerce, formerly of the Fantasy Castle in Long Beach.
The artist formerly known as Fantasy Castle.
Yeah. Eddie, another Eddie that I met downtown, and Danny. Do that. Actually, I've known in my previous life, or work that I used to work with. He saw me again walking through, and I forgot a couple of your people's names in Lot J. In J Lot, I was maybe a little bit drunk. But all the people that I met over the weekend that came up and chopped it up with me, I appreciate it, guys. It was fun.
And your big sponsor that got you there. It's funny. So like
Rafi?
Rafi.
Rafi's the man, dude.
So I don't think I've ever told the story of how we first met. It was at Gaze Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah.
Jiu-Jitsu gym. And you're training there. I've been training there off and on I've been there since 2003 or something, right? But I kind of come on. Gaze moved locations. I was on and off, going to college, coming back, whatever. And I come back, and they're like, "All right, so sponsor, do this." Like naming names. I'm like, who the sponsor? And that was you. And you got the nickname because you paid your gym dues every month, and you trained for a little bit, and then you would never show up. And so like. Once every 3 months when you'd show up, they're like, "Oh, you're like a sponsor. Like you're paying the gym."
That's not what happened. Train. That's how it was told. What happened was I told him that my work schedule changed, and it changed every 4 months. So I wouldn't be able to come. So can you pause my membership? And I was young and stupid back then. I didn't really check my bank account. So he kept charging me even though I wasn't coming.
The old Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu way. Just
and then how he spins it is, oh yeah, you come in.
You're a sponsor.
That's not what happened, dude. That's not what happened.
Hey, well, I'm just saying is like you're getting sponsored now, and that's karma from you sponsoring Gaze Jiu-Jitsu for however many years.
Honestly, dude,
good things come around.
One thing I will say is this: I had already stalked Rafi. I freaking hit up his Instagram, his face, make sure he was a real dude. He was a real Raider fan. Cool. And I said this to you. When I was supposed to meet him in the lobby, because I got there first and Homegrown and I were just gambling. We went and got something to eat. He texted me and he said,
wait for it.
It's freaking hilarious. I didn't believe it because I already vetted the dude basically. But
you sent it to me.
I sent it to him, but it was hilarious. He texted me, "Hey, asshole, time to come clean. You got catfish punked. I'm not a Raider fan. I'm not in Vegas, and there's no tickets for you or room for you. F you, loser. Chiefs Kingdom, bitch. And RJ knows more football than you." He sent me that, and I looked at, and he was actually recording me when he texted me. So he saw me pick up my phone and look at it. And I mean, I didn't buy it because I looked at my phone and I started looking around like, okay, he's around here somewhere. I know he is. But if he would have gotten me, that would have been really good.
We got to get him to send us that video. I gotta see you answering that text. Send it away, Rafi.
Yeah. I mean, I totally didn't sell it. I was like, okay, well, where is he? I'm looking around for him, and he was upset. He's like, man, I wanted to get you, I didn't get you. I was like, oh.
He's like, well, as soon as you sent me that STD test, I knew for sure you were real. Something's getting bad.
Right.
Well, I'm glad you had a good time despite the Raiders' best efforts to make sure you had the worst time ever. But
good God.
It's
a big difference. It was a big difference between the walk over the bridge to the stadium and the walk over the bridge away from the stadium.
It's a long walk, dude. Like, why does it feel completely uphill on the way back and slightly uphill on the way?
That walk to the game with the band playing and everyone cheering, it felt like the bridge was bouncing, dude.
Yeah,
I'm like, oh, damn, this is dope. And I freaking went up. I went live a couple times, and it was electric, dude. It was
it's the closest thing to the Coliseum because it's like the rich man version of that BART walk. At the old Coliseum had that BART, and it was just like this, like a prison walk of just concrete and barbed wire and graffiti.
You can reach down and open it and grab pieces of concrete from the ground, like, oh shit.
And then now it's like
all gates and shit.
Now it's Vegas, so you're leaving the Mandalay, and it feels like okay, like it's a little nicer, It's like the same thing, just the Vegas version of it, It's like the closest thing to the Coliseum.
Dude, that Modelo tailgate was pretty nice.
Had a good time.
Oh yeah, it was nice. They had all the games playing, the red zone, and it was covered with like the freaking misting fans all over the place. So if you wanted to just, get your beer and then go and watch some football, I mean, it was amazing. Free, just walk in for nothing. It was great.
Well, some of the ambiance and experience was nice, even if the game was terrible. I'm trying to. We're 3 games into the season. We're starting to get a feel of AP, Getsy, Minshew, this team, and I can't help but wonder, like, Did the Panthers expose the Raiders, or was this more fluky? Because it felt fluky when you're just coming off of a great win over the Ravens, and you're going against unanimously considered the worst team in football. They get that spark, right? That's a thing, right? It's a real spark when you like get a new quarterback in. The team, the players are like, oh, we got something new to think about. Like this Bryce Young kid. Why am I running hard routes when Bryce Young's just going to miss me? Why am I blocking my ass off as a guard when he's just going to like scramble into an end? Like, why am I doing this, right? And you go, oh, okay, like here's like a veteran savvy player that knows what he's doing, and it's something new, right? I can't help I can't put my finger on, is this really who the Raiders are and the Carolina fucking Panthers are the first to expose us? Or was this just trap game, terrible timing? It was really just Bryce Young that was that bad, and the Panthers really aren't that terrible? Or is it somewhere in between?
I think it's just somewhere in between because there's a lot of other things that came into play. When you play the Ravens, you want Lamar Jackson to stay in the pocket. He's not. I would dare to say that throwing from the pocket, Andy Dalton is better throwing from the pocket than Lamar Jackson. Now, Lamar Jackson is much more dynamic a player, and that kind of adds to his ability to get, chunk plays. But if you can't get pressure on Andy Dalton, then he's just pitch and catch. And that's with most veteran quarterbacks. You're not going to fool them with pre-snap reads. You're not going to fool them. They've seen everything. So they know where to go with the ball. And if you're not moving him off of his spot, I mean, it's just pitch. It's just like 7-on-7 drills. And we had injuries, and we also were feeling ourselves a little bit too much. And we don't have the luxury. A trap game for a team that's 1-1 that won 8 games, that shouldn't be. Teams that aren't good shouldn't fall to trap games. That's kind of like what's kind of baked in. Trap games trap good teams. We're not proven to be that good, and we haven't been that good. It seems like the feeling was just show up and we'll be able to win. And ultimately, we talked about this early in the season where, you were saying how you were concerned about our depth. And I said depth only comes into play if a lot of guys get hurt. And lo and behold, both of our ends are hurt. One was able to suit up, play, I think, the least amount of snaps since his second year in the league. And the other one is gone for the season. We had a linebacker not play. And we had a bunch of guys nicked up that, it's we're not that good to come out like that.
So I think a couple things. We'll start with what felt fluky-ish, and then we'll get to the stuff that felt, I think that's just us. Maxx Crosby being hurt to the point where he was less than 50%. Like, he's plays so much, and he's always playing with, bumps and bruises and nicks and knacks and whatever. But even an 80% Maxx Crosby is a player that an offense has to account for. Even an 80% Maxx Crosby carries this defense. Maxx Crosby was less than 50% of himself, and it showed. I said this on the show on Sunday. The best example of how effective Maxx Crosby isn't the games where he gets 8 tackles, 3 sacks, a fumble recovery, 2 passes batted down. Like, that's just him being amazing, and you see what he's capable of. You really know what Maxx Crosby means to this defense when he does almost nothing because he's hobbled, and the entire defense implodes. This entire defense imploded because Maxx Crosby couldn't be Maxx Crosby. Like, when he's getting pressure, then when he's not getting pressure, then you can double team Wilkinson. When he's not in the backfield, then a running back has to make his cut earlier than normal, right? When Max is being Max, everything feeds off of it. DBs don't have to cover as long. Linebackers aren't getting blocked. Defensive tackles aren't getting double teamed. Quarterbacks aren't making mistakes. Like when Max isn't Max, like the whole defense. We're talking about, this defense could be top 10. It could be so good. Not without Max. Not without one player. And he even played. It wasn't even like he didn't play at all. Like, the Panthers still like accounted for him and game planned for him. And you still had that going for him. And still that wasn't enough. Without Max, this is a below average defense. On a defense we were flirting with top 5. We were flirting with like, dude, yeah, man. Like if everyone plays the way Spillane's so good and these DBs can cover, like, yeah, Wilkinson, like, yeah. What if Tyree Wilson like has his second year leap? Like this could be so. We are below average if Maxx Crosby isn't Maxx Crosby. We are.
Without Malcolm Kuntz, yes. With Malcolm Kuntz, I think we're still a pretty decent defense. If you take the starting edge rushers off of any team that's a good defense, they're going to struggle because the defense is built around the defensive line getting pressure without having to blitz. And so I'm not going to say that this defense is not good, but what we saw on Sunday wasn't the Raiders defense. That is a carcass of Maxx Crosby. Ups to him for going out there and trying to make it happen. But I mean, he was a shell of himself, and no Max Kuntz on the other side. It was, to be fair, that wasn't our defense. It's what we have now. It's what we have to work with now. So we're going to have to blitz a lot more, and we're going to have to be a little bit tighter in the back end, and guys are going to have to step up. And the thing is, I mean, the next man up theory only works so much. It only works so far. Like if you next man up, Robinson or Snowden or Wilson, you gonna have to step up on the other side of defensive end opposite Max. Well, if Kuntz and Max, I mean, it's just only so much you can take away from a defense. Probably two of their best players, maybe not the best two, but two of their best players away from a defense. Any defense is going to struggle if you do that.
But also just expose like the warts that we already have, like our open field tackling, brutal. Our DBs weren't covering for long. Like they can cover for short periods of time. They can't cover for long periods of time.
It just makes a big problem. Like if you keep any quarterback on time and if you don't force them to move, yeah, they're going to figure.
There was zero pressure without blitzing.
Nothing.
Like none. Nada. Gray beard Andy Dalton was just like taking his time if we weren't bringing 5 or 6 dudes. So, I mean, and so, that's, I know it's like depressing, but it's in a weird way of an element of hope. It's like, all right, Max is going to get healthy and he'll be back and then we'll be back to normal. So that was a little fluky. The Andy, like kind of coming out of nowhere, right? Like any, you kind of think of even like the Rams game last season when a quarterback comes in on 2 days notice, like we played terrible. But when it's like when you have no tape on a brand new quarterback in a brand new system, it's hard to prepare. When you have zero tape on anybody, even if they're not good, there's that. So there's those other elements. So there are levels of flukiness to Sunday. What concerns me is the problems we knew that were there, and they just got exacerbated. Gardner Minshew. He's in the pocket for 2 seconds, and then he flips out. Like there'll be no pressure, and he just like pull the ball down, start freaking out, looking around, like running into his lineman. It's like, dude, you're in a good NFL pocket. Like you have time. I'm screaming at my television. I'm like, you got time, Gardner. Go through your progressions, go through your reads. Be just like 1,000, 2,000. First guy's not there. Oh God, I got to get out of here. I gotta run. Like,
yeah, there were times where he tried to scramble out of the pocket one way, tried to scramble out the other way, and then settled back in the pocket that was there the whole time.
Yeah.
And it was a much more apparent seeing it live I mean, dude, big ups to freaking homeboy because seats were like 7th row, dude. They were like right there, and you could see everything right there. And he was like panicking right away, and he just couldn't stay on time. The exact thing that um helped Andy Dalton play his best game in 10 years, 5 years maybe. Um, he it was what caused Minshew to have a rough game was he didn't stay on time and he kept moving out of his spot. And part of it is that's how he plays, but you can't manufacture that stuff just because you're like you said the first read isn't available right away. And
He's
that's
not he's
something
not
that
so dynamic where you can bail on your progressions
yeah,
for no
he's not.
reason. You know what I mean? You're not like he's an okay mobile quarterback. You're not Lamar Jackson where you can just like make it happen. Like it's like
Yeah, you're not picking up that first down. You're not outrunning a linebacker to the sticks. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, like you're not gonna make something out of nothing. Like all right, get out of a little trouble a little bit, buy yourself some time, but you can't just bail constantly. Like that's what like Jaden Daniels was doing the first 2 games of the season because you're a rookie and you're fast, so it's like that's what you do.
Can we talk about that for a second? People are like, "Oh, you should have traded everything to get Jaden Daniels, dude." They didn't want to trade the pick. They weren't trading the pick. Get it through your freaking skulls. Quit crushing Telesco on this one. Washington was not trading the pick.
If the Raiders offered 3 first-rounders and Max Crosby, 1, Raider Nation would revolt. 2, Washington would probably still say no. They probably
They
still
were
say no.
not trading that pick. They were not trading the pick.
None of the top 3. None of those top 3.
None of those guys were moving. They weren't budget. I mean, New England may-ish could have traded it, but no.
And then the other issue with Minshew is there are just so many guys open. Like even before he bailed, there'd be guys like if there's pressure coming, like there's hot routes there, right? There's little short outs, swing passes, like there's bailouts. Like, we'll get to Luke Getsy here in a minute. We'll give a report card on Luke Getsy, but he's not a complete schmo. Like he's built in, there's a swing pass if there's a blitz, right? There's a slant if there's a blitz. If there's a blitz, that means it's one-on-one. There's your read. Like that's what you do if there's like something not there. Like there were guys wide open all over the place that
Let me ask you a question.
Just missing.
What was working the best in that fourth quarter, the end of the third and fourth quarter against Baltimore offensively for us?
Minshew stayed in the pocket, and Bowers and Davante found space.
Yeah, so Bowers had 1 target in the first half.
Yeah.
We were doing the Raiders tango, man. Run, pass, kick. Run, pass, kick. It was terrible, man. It was terrible. And there was a lot. This isn't.
You're getting choked up, I can tell.
I know. I want to be able to word this properly. This isn't an offense that an offensive-minded person would run. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. An offensive-minded person would not continually run off of what's been now typically for you a run formation with run personnel, run heavy formation and run heavy personnel. There's 3 games now, so there's some tendencies that are out there. If you and I see it, these coaches see it. When you have Zeus out there, you run 80% of the time. Mm-hmm. When you have Madison out there or Abdullah, you pass 80% of the time. Mm-hmm. The formations that you're in, it just seems like there's a phrase in Spanish. It's called a huevo. A huevo is an egg, but a huevo is like
balls.
Like, come on, just get it done. Get it done. And it's like if this it doesn't as bad as they're as bad as offensive coordinators are out there. They're not going to do what Getsy did in this game if they weren't directed to do it. And it seems to me like I get that there's a lot of people advising AP, but I feel like it's almost gotten to the point where there's too many people advising it. There's too many guys there. And
I've heard that bannered around. You've brought it up. I do our boy Steve Cofield's show every Monday. He brought it up last Monday. And I can't see. That's the thing. I can't tell if it's too many voices or if it's just AP's voice, because
ultimately he's the last decision. Ultimately,
yeah. So like it all comes down on his shoulders eventually.
Yeah.
But it just feels very much AP to just keep running into brick walls. Like whether it's Marvin Lewis telling him to do it or one of his 9,000, we're like the biggest coaching staff on earth, right? Where it's someone it just feels AP. And he says so in the pressers. Like he's straight up saying, like, we got to run the ball.
Got to be able to run the ball.
So, okay.
Do you want to win, motherfucker?
Okay. In a bubble, like, you're right. We can't have literally, like, a historically terrible run offense. We've gotten 55 yards or less rushing in 3 straight games. That's literally never happened in Raiders history. The Raiders have been around since 1960. It's never happened. That's how... It's not the like just 32 out of 32 teams rushing. It's historically atrocious. So yes, you do need to fix your run game. It needs to be fixed. But there's a difference between fixing it and just doing the failure over and over again and hoping you'll make it up, like hoping you'll just like figure it out. There's a difference there.
So here's my viewpoint on this. The teams that run the ball the best and have been running the ball the best are like, let's say, for example, a team in each division. There's the Niners on one end, and then there's the Dolphins on the other. They do it in similar fashions, but one uses primarily the running back and one uses other players as well. But there's always some kind of motion. There's always some kind of action. I don't care who you are in the NFL. It's going to be extremely difficult to just line up and kick the guy's ass in front of you. It's hard to win that way in the NFL. There's the same shit I was talking about last season when I'm like, you got to move these guys around. You got to give the defense a little bit of a pause. You can't just let them key in on their keys and just run downhill, because they know what's coming, because your tendencies are so strong. You have to have some kind of motion. You have to have some kind of game to play to divert the eyes of the defender somehow. You can't just line up in a heavy formation and run right up the guard's ass. That shit's just not going to work. Who does that in the NFL and has a good rushing offense? I haven't seen one. We don't have Derrick Henry back there. And even so, you have the threat of Lamar Jackson and the play action.
I was just going to say, like, the Ravens do it, but that's only because you have the most bruising running back in football and the best running quarterback in football.
Dude, almost every play that they run is some type of play action or fake pitch or something.
Yeah.
So every play they run has a run action to it. It just the difference is who keeps the ball. And it's not a functional way to run an offense. And that is on Getsy, because you can run the ball if you disguise it well enough, and he's not this. It's so predictable. It's the same thing that we saw from Josh McDaniels. And I don't understand the disconnect, because you have people that you pay on your staff, assistants that you pay, grunts that you pay to grind through, guys that want to be scouts in the future, that grind through all this tape, and they see what other teams are doing that works. They see what the top rushing offenses are doing. Why not do something similar? Why get stuck in a way of the 1980s and 90s running the ball up the middle out of the same formations? It doesn't make sense. That's what I said after the game. It doesn't make sense that an offensive-minded person would do that unless he's getting directed to.
One, it does feel like, and we're not inside those meetings, so we could be wrong, but it does feel like Antonio Pierce is saying run the ball no matter what, right? That's one, right? That's one element to it. Two, and it's what I've been saying since week one. I feel like Getsy is so married to his playbook progressions that he can't get out of it and just go to what works. He's like, all right, we need to run the ball at a 2 tight end sets so then we can get to play action, so we can get the ball to Brock and Mayer, so the defense gets in heavy sets, so Davante's in single cut. Like he's like, all right, we got to do these in this order so we can do these things. It's like, well, you can't do the first thing. You can't run the ball out of the gate, right? So pivot. Sorry, nobody's respecting our run game, nor should they. If you're a defensive coordinator that's like, hey, we better line up in some heavy defensive sets, load up that box, you should be fired immediately because the Raiders have an historically terrible run offense, right? So you're not getting anyone to respect that. So you're not getting the mismatches with Brock and Mayer, right? You can't line up in a heavy set and then they're going to have some fat linebacker cover. That's not happening. So get over that. Move on. Pivot. Adjust. Do something different. But whether it's Getsy or AP or one of the grunts you're talking about, they're like, no. This is our game plan. This is our progression. This is how we build to where we want to go. Like, throw it the fuck out the window. The Lions, right? They're notorious for not having like a scheme or plan in their offensive progressions. They just do what works. Today we're gonna run power. Tomorrow we're gonna run verts. Today we're gonna run play action because it worked. It worked. Run what works. Instead, it's just straight up like do the same thing every goddamn time. And it's predictable and ineffective. And literally the only thing that can save us is that we have two of the most undefendable players in football. Davante and Brock can still get open despite all of our issues, and we can kind of get saved there. But you're just gonna lean on pure talent and have that bail you out? Like, then why do we have offensive coordinators if it's just get open, Brock?
Honestly, I'm looking at a couple of things here, and it just, I keep saying it doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense. None of this makes sense because we were in the seats and the people around us were freaking awesome, right? And we're like, oh, okay, this is going to be a run play. Okay, they're going to pass now. Just by like us in the crowd watching the game, we can tell what they were going to do. And we were right about, honestly, 90% of the time. That is absolutely ridiculous if you're that predictable. And
well, you're also a football genius, Soto.
No, it's not that. I am, but it's not that. Because the guys around me were doing it too. We're kind of like going like, you pick one, I pick one, you pick one, and kind of like, oh, they're going to do this, they're going to do that. It wasn't just me doing it. It was all of us around there doing it. And goddamn, I'm at a loss, honestly. Like I like to be able to have more insight, but it just I can't wrap my head around it because it's, to me, again, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense like that someone would try to be this archaic. And maybe if it worked, maybe if our line was there and they were crushing it and we were able to get, the yardage that we were looking for, okay, I get it. But it's not working. And to continue to do that over and over again, look, the zone running scheme. Okay, when I ran a version of the zone running scheme when I played, and like for example, the center and the guard on the strong side was a jack, and then the guard and the tackle was a queen, and then the tackle on the tight end was a king block, right? So you would see where everyone's lined up, and you would call out the tags, whatever, and you would, okay. So let's say, for example, it's a queen block. So it's the tackle and myself. We both block the guy that's in our gap, double team kind of, where I kind of get around him, and then the tackle peels off, and that's kind of like the stretch play. That's how it works, right? Mm-hmm. If you can't do that, when it's 2-on-1s and you expect them to run power and have that be better, the principles of blocking are still the same. You're just moving in one direction versus the other. If you can't run block, you're not going to be able to run block power either. It's not like you just change the scheme and automatically going to be a great blocking team. That's not the issue here. The issue is they know what we're going to do. That's the problem. It can be a stretch play. It can be a zone running play. It can be a power play. If they know you're running the ball, everyone's going to be crowding the line and going full speed. And that's the issue more than the scheme, more than the running style, more than the play call. It's the fact that they're so predictable that the defense knows what they're going to do.
So we've been doing this show for 35 minutes now, and you have yet to mention my Danny DeVito vase, my brand new Danny DeVito vase that's coming out of the corner. I'm pretty disappointed in you. He's been staring at you with those glasses and those beady eyes for a half hour, and you've yet to mention it. I'm very disappointed. Not as disappointed as DeVito, but disappointed.
I am pretty disappointed in myself, honestly.
You should be. You should be. So Minshew or O'Connell? There was when Antonio Pierce came out in the post-game press conference, and post-sacrifice press conference. He said some of the guys were making business decisions, and so now we're going to have to, right? He wasn't talking quarterback.
Oh, no.
But that is a conversation to be had. So it's been more or less confirmed that Minshew will start again this upcoming game against Cleveland. Should that be the case? Because we always knew, like, one of the advantages of having a quarterback battle is your number 2 quarterback isn't that far off of your number 1 quarterback. So it's not like, all right, do we have to go another direction? It's going to be a massive drop-off in talent, right? That's not, whether you were Team Minshew, Team O'Connell, I don't think anyone's like, one of them's 10 times better than the other. I don't think there's anybody that was like, okay, the gap between the two is insurmountable. There's, you like one of them, but you're like, okay, they're pretty close. It was a competitive quarterback battle, and I think this guy should play, but it was close, right?
Yeah.
Is that time to make the change now? Is that time to make the change coming up? Is that something that could change mid-game on Sunday? Is this something that shouldn't even be broached? Because I thought one of the good parts of having a quarterback battle is Minshew should never be comfortable. You should never be like, oh, I got this all wrapped up. It's like, no, you got to deliver. You got to deliver because we got a guy that is about as good as you. Some people think better. Some people think worse, but damn near close. And the easiest thing to change on offense isn't scheme, isn't offensive coordinator, isn't lineman. It isn't bringing in a new running back or a wide receiver. It's changing quarterback. That's the easiest big change to make it on offense.
So if you change to O'Connell, you really got to stick with them, because this going the back and forth thing, it's not like, hey, hey, Minshew, you're just struggling right now. Once you figure things out, you'll get back on the horse and you'll be the guy. That's not what you're saying when you bench a guy that didn't pull away from the other guy, regardless of who it is. If you move to O'Connell, that's what you're saying, and Minshew's going to be the backup from here on out. And you're going to live and die with what O'Connell gives you. I'm not saying it's going to be better. I'm not saying it's going to be worse. What I am saying is we can't judge O'Connell's drive at the end of the game to what Minshew was doing, because O'Connell was playing a lot of backups in prevent defense.
Yeah, it was garbage time.
And so it's like it's.
He looked good, but it was garbage time.
It looked good, but again, they weren't playing the same players, and they were kind of just like letting him keep him in front of you. Keep him in front of you, no big plays, right? I think that there has got to be a very, very specific set of things that Minshew has to improve upon in this next game. And you give him a little bit of time. And if you're seeing the same thing, let's say about halftime, And if it's the same old bullshit where he's not going through his progressions, where he's having happy feet, where he's not throwing the ball to the open man when he's not doing that stuff, then you have to pull the plug.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's a part of, like what I talked about in the postgame show. Applied knowledge is power. You have to apply the knowledge that you get. If someone is showing you something for 4 games now, and it's not getting better, and these are things that you've pointed out to him directly, and you've told him specifically these things need to change and these things need to get better. Here's where this guy was open. Here's your reads. Here's this. Here's that. And he's not doing that. Then it's just not going to happen. And you don't have the luxury to think, okay, well, we'll just kind of wait and see if it happens. No, he's already shown you that it's not going to happen, and you have to go to the other guy. At that point you do. I think that you still roll with Minshew to see how it works, because if you change, it's a change, and it's the rest of the 13 games after that. That's where the change is going to be. So give him a chance to see. You selected him to be the starter for a reason. He showed you a small glimpse of that. Help him out with some play calling, help him out with some movement offensively, give him some easier throws to make. Start him off in a rhythm. If none of that stuff works, because look, the play calling hasn't worked. That hasn't worked either. Mm-hmm. So address everything and then see. And if that's still an issue, then you can make the change.
Well, like I mentioned, the biggest thing, like the biggest reason for this change, like, look, the Raiders' problems aren't primarily Minshew. Minshew hasn't been good, but the much bigger problem is the historically terrible run game, the very bad offensive line, the very confusing and baffling play calling, and Minshew's play has also been a part of it, right? But those other 3 things you can't just turn around, right? Quarterback's the one thing where you can be like, let's try something different. Let's cause a spark. Let's shake things up. I don't know if I use this example on my show, but when I was playing squash in Abu Dhabi with one of the audio guys, he was whooping my ass for like 3 straight games. And so on the 4th game, I was like, hey, let's put $100 on it just to change it up. And I won. Like, for whatever, like, it's just, I played a little better. The pressure got to him, whatever, right? It was just like, let me just.
He's not a primetime player, baby.
Exactly. Like, when the lights are brightest, homeboy likes to perform, right? So it's just like throw a monkey wrench in it. Drop a nuke. Try something, right? Like that, like those sparks can lead to things. Andy Dalton just did that. Like that's one of Andy Dalton's best games ever. Everyone's like, oh, Andy Dalton's that good. He's not that good.
No.
But it was a spark. Deontay Johnson's like, oh, I can run these routes for a reason now. Chuba Hubbard's like, oh, I'm going to run better. Like all these guys had like fantasy football fucking king days because it was a spark. It was something new. It was exciting. It was an extra pep in your step. And when you're all the elite of the elite of the elite, like the Carolina Panthers or the Kansas City Chiefs, the athletically skill level between those teams is minimal when it comes to the grand scheme of things, right? You're all still the 1% of the 1%, right? If you can just be half a step more excited, a quarter of a step more motivated, that's the difference between being the worst team in football and blowing us out, which is what the Panthers did. And so that's more the reason why I'm like, before this season gets really out of hand, let's really look at giving Aidan O'Connell a shot. Not because I think Aidan O'Connell's so much better than Minshew. I said before, I don't think either one of them is. They're good and bad at different things. I don't think either one of them is drastically better than the other. But the spark that a new quarterback brings is real. It is tangibly real. It is. You can touch it. We see it all the time. That's more the thing. Before this season gets really out of hand and before our schedule gets really brutal.
I mean, if you're AP and the coaching staff and you're looking at yourself and you're like, man, we really screwed up. We screwed up here, and here. We didn't do our offense any favors in this way. Mm. Let's clean this up in these ways. Because, I mean, the reporter, I forgot who it was who asked the question, but goddamn, It was a question that all of us were thinking. You said you want to commit to the run, that you have to get the run game going. Is it just switching from zone scheme to a power scheme? Is it passing the ball to set up the run? It's all these things that we've been talking about. And AP said, we got to look at all things. Now, if we come out again against the Browns and we, line up in a heavy formation and we run the ball right up the middle again, we know that he's full of shit. Mm-hmm. And we have serious doubts about how good AP is going to be as a head coach moving forward. Because ultimately all this falls on him. Even though he's not the offensive coordinator, he's allowing this to happen.
Well, let's get to Luke Getsy then. Let's do a report card on Luke Getsy. It's only been 3 games, but it's enough to kind of look at what we're talking about. Because remember, he was like the 3rd choice for the Raiders, the most unproven member of this. Well, no, that's Antonio Pierce, right? He hasn't done anything, but like he was the big wild card, right? He was the passing game coordinator for the Packers. I was like, all right, you got Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams. Like, Soto, you can be the passing game coordinator for that duo and do well, right? Then he goes to the offensive coordinator for the Bears, and the offense sucks. And it's like, well, Justin Fields is just not all that good. And then he comes to the Raiders as their 3rd choice. Currently, the Raiders are 19.3 points per game. That's 19th. Below average, but not atrocious.
Yeah.
244.7 passing yards per game. That's 4th. Part of it's because we're also playing from behind every single game.
Yeah.
So we're looking at it. Rushing yards per game, 51. That's last by a lot. That's last by like 20-something yards. Again, historically atrocious yards per game rushing. And we haven't seen any adjustments. So my big thing here is, like you've mentioned, lack of creativity. And he seems like a system. You know how there's like system quarterbacks? He seems like again, like Josh McDaniels. He's a system offensive coordinator. We're gonna run heavy. We're gonna run up the middle, and then they're gonna load up against the run, and then we're gonna have mismatches with our tight ends, and then we're gonna go to play action, and then Davante's gonna be open because then he'll be in single coverage. It's like, well, that's not working. So now what are you gonna do? Well, I don't know. I got no other ideas. We're just gonna do this, and then we're going from A to B to C to D instead of trying 17F. Out of nowhere. That's been the biggest issue for me, is just you're just like married to this playbook that you got 12 years ago, and you're just like, well, I can't go to page 3 yet because I haven't gotten to page 2. It's like, motherfucker, write a new page. Come up with something.
Yeah, I talked about it. Getting the running game going doesn't necessarily have to mean running the ball more. If you want to get more than 55 yards a game, yeah, you have to run. If you're only getting 3 yards a carry or 2.5 yards a carry, yeah, you have to run the ball 30 times. Mm. But you don't. If you're more effective running the ball, if you're more effective running it situationally, you don't have to run the ball as much. So set yourself up to be able to run the ball more effectively. And it's hard to. I'm not trying to defend Getsy either, but the offensive line has been playing poorly run blocking. They have not been run blocking well at all. I'm not saying that it would have been these running philosophy would be much like, one of the best running in the league had they played better, but it's difficult to run the ball when your interior 3 offensive linemen are getting their asses kicked against the run. I mean, Whitehair is like statistically one of the worst offensive linemen in the league.
Dude, there was a block he missed where he straight up, like, his hands never came up. He just bent forward at the waist and tried to just like headbutt a defensive tackle. And the tackle just like sauntered around him and looked at him weird. He just like, I didn't do a swim move, didn't like cut through him. He's just kind of like, okay, I'm making that tackle now. Remember, like the big thing, like, oh, Justin Fields and the Bears offense sucked. It wasn't Getsy's fault. It was just Justin Fields was terrible, right? I did some digging. I got in the nerdery with my nerderies.
Oh,
And go bust out the
yeah.
calculator,
Go
all right?
on.
So Justin Fields had 3 years in Chicago, and he's had 3 games in Pittsburgh as the starter, right? Now it's only been 3 games, but bear with me here. His completion percentage was around 60% those first 3 seasons. 58.9 his rookie year, then 60.4, then 61.4. This season, it's 73.3, over 10 percentage points better than his time with Luke Getsy as his offensive coordinator in Chicago. His touchdown to interception ratio, 7-10 his rookie year, bad. Improved to 17-11 his next year, and then 16-9 his next year, right? It is 2-1 now. Only two touchdowns, 1 interception. Not a lot of production touchdown wise, but only 1 pick. 2-1. Better than ever was in Chicago. His interception percentage, pretty high in Chicago. It steadily got better. 3.7 his rookie year, real bad. Then 3.5, then 2.4. This season in 3 games, it's 1.3. Half as bad as his best. A third as bad, or a third better. What, 3 times as better? You know what I'm getting at. 3 times better than his rookie year. Twice as good as his average in Chicago. His rating, 95.3, 10 points higher than it was in Chicago. He's taking less sacks than he was in Chicago. I mean, I know Mike Tomlin knows how to make something out of nothing, and they're 3-0, in Pittsburgh, and they're finding weird ways to win. Not that Justin Fields is playing lights out or anything. It's just the Steelers finding weird ways to win. But hot damn, man, like your completion percentage is 10 points better. You've only thrown 1 pick in 3 games. Your interception percentage is 3 times better than your rookie year. Like it feels like it was Getsy.
Yeah, I mean, especially when you look at Gardner Minshew having a 2-1, better than 2-1 touchdown to interception ratio, right? And he has 4 turnovers in 2+ games. He didn't finish the whole 3rd game, and he has 4 turnovers already. He has an interception in every game and a fumble in one game.
With the best weapons he's ever had. And again, offensive line is a problem. Run game's shit. He's not because of Minshew, but there's a lot of things he can control that some of these interceptions were 100% him. Just brain fart of brain farts.
And so you said this before, and honestly, I've always agreed with it. The issue that we're looking at here is the best coaches get the best from their players, the players that they have on their team. And the issue that we're having here is it seems like Getsy is coaching a team he doesn't have. And he's asking Minshew to do things that he's not comfortable with. He is not a 6'4", tall, long-armed, freaking pocket passer. That's not who he is. You have to move the pocket a little bit. You have to get him moving. You have to create easy throws for him. And he's jumpy. So I think
you have to orchestrate his
go around. I think there's equal blame to go around. Yeah. I think that Getsy is being directed to do a certain thing by a play style, but the plays and how they're designed aren't conducive to the team that he has. He's not getting these guys moved around. He's not creating a mobile pocket. He's not creating easy throws for somebody who's 6'6" to be able to see easily. You have to be able to create these things for a guy who's new in a system. Now, if it's Drew Brees who's been in that same system forever, yeah, he knows where to go with the ball without even looking. But that's not who you have right now. And ultimately, we're going to see. Because look, if I'm AP and this stuff doesn't get better, you got to have a different play caller, another guy, or put him in the box.
Is there, at the beginning of the season, is there one defensive coordinator in the NFL that's like, oh man, Luke Getsy plus Gardner Minshew, that's keeping me up at night. I've got my work cut out for me.
None.
Like we were optimistic and we were hoping, and and everything we said about Minshew was true, right? He's never had a chance to be the man, never had a system for him. Like, it doesn't seem like he has a system for him now. It seems like Luke Getsy's is like, this is what I do. Plug and play, figure it out. And this is where we're at.
I mean, yeah, and I hate to condemn Gardner Minshew because there is a lot that the team can do that they haven't been doing to help him. And it's not all his fault. And he isn't a player that's as bad as people are making him out to be. But we're not helping him out. We're not helping him either. Like we literally, how many quarterbacks are going to be great quarterbacks with the absolute bottom of the barrel running offense? Mm. How many? It's not many. If you take a look at the best running teams last year, look at the quarterbacks. They didn't have great years, I wouldn't think. Mm. So it's like you're not doing yourself any favors. And I understand that may be where AP is coming from. We got to get the run game started. We got to help out Minshew. We got to help this. We got to help that. But you know what? Maybe you go in reverse. Maybe you throw the ball more initially to be able to give yourself a chance, because ultimately you're not giving yourself a chance right now.
I would give Minshew more rope if there weren't fucking dudes open every pass play.
And that's part of the offense that's like, yeah, there's guys that are open, but is Getsy putting Minshew in the position to see those guys? I don't know that. I haven't looked at the tape like that. And ultimately, we don't know the progressions and stuff like that either. So it's difficult to say. But what I can say is Minshew's looked better than he looks now. But ultimately, they need to improve, because if you can, the Browns are even more injured than we are. Mm. And if the Browns come in and the Browns handle business and they beat us, then Minshew and Getsy have to not fire Getsy, but get someone else to be a play caller.
Well, I've had the lower third up. You ready to do some what up Windbags?
Yeah, we'll do it.
Yeah, don't be too excited. All right, relax, Soto.
I've already gotten too riled up this entire thing, because if I could just have a freaking red line to AP and just say, AP, just help me make it make sense. I won't tell anybody. Just help me make it make sense why you guys are continuing to do these things.
Well, the Lions head coach had his address leak and he had to move. So maybe we can have, if we work for Dan Campbell, maybe we can have someone have Antonio Pierce leak his address and you can just show up at his house, which is like a manila, it's like a 3-ring binder. It's like 30 pages long of like questions and ideas. Just like show up. It's like, all right, this is what we're going to do to fix it. There we go. Keith Pardini, 9065. Soto makes a good point. None of this makes sense. My question is Getsy running the offense like this, heavy run, because AP wants it that way, or is this all on Getsy and he's trying to force a square peg team into round hole player talent? Either way, someone needs to admit they are wrong and adjust ASAP. It feels like it's coming from on high.
Yeah, it feels like, because look, coming where Getsy's come from, with Davante Adams, it would make sense to run something similar to where your best offensive player has familiarity, to run an offense similar to that. And in Green Bay, they ran or they passed to set up the run. They had Aaron Jones. They had good running backs. A.J. Dillon, they had other guys that were good running backs there. But ultimately, they were still passing to set up the run. I understand that we don't have an Aaron Rodgers, but that's where the coaching comes into play. You have to be able to do something to help you. And I don't know how many more games and how many more drives you're gonna do, the Raiders tango and expect a different result. It's just I Keith Pardini summed up what I've been saying this entire show. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense from a standpoint of where Luke Getsy came from and where he knew his best offensive player from before. It doesn't make any sense to play this way.
The man just loves 3rd and 9. It's his favorite thing. Dutch Master 707 just canceled my order on a Bauer shirt I bought, and I'm going to return this hat I ordered as soon as I receive it. When is being a loyal Raider fan going to pay off? I semi-called for a boycott on the post show because it's just it's been 20 years. It's been, 40 years since a championship, 20 years since a playoff win, ineptitude after ineptitude, no willingness to change. And it's you just feel powerless. And I used the example of, it was 8-10 years ago, whenever the NHL did a strike and they cut into a third of their season. I was like, all right, I'm going to watch my Kings. I'll watch hockey. I'm not buying one ticket. I'm not buying one jersey. I'm not buying one fucking LA Kings penis enlarger. Nothing. I'm not spending a dime just as my own personal fuck you for striking. Right. I mean, what else can we do as fans? Right. It's just hey, maybe I'm not calling for a major boycott yet. It's week 3. But I'd be down to spearhead one. Just be yeah, I'm not going to. Yeah, I'm not going to go to any games.
For it right now. Guys, don't buy any Raider gear. Don't do it. Buy some autumn windbag gear, but because we deliver.
If you really want to stick it to Mark Davis, buy some autumn windbag gear. That'll show him.
The issue that we're having here is this happened to me before. So when I was younger, my brother, for whatever reason, my brother and I just never wanted to agree on anything. Right? Okay.
Well, that's so weird because you're so agreeable now.
Yeah.
Glad you grew out of it.
Do you we both love the Dodgers, and that wasn't going to change because our dad was a really big Dodger fan. My brother liked the Rams because he's a pussy, and of course I love the Raiders. And then he's like, oh well, I'm a Laker fan. I'm like, I didn't really watch basketball, so I'm all right, whatever. This fucking Clippers, I guess I'll root for the Clippers, whatever. After 10 years or so of watching these guys, I just all right, I'm done. And I don't even watch basketball at all anymore. At all. Zero. And there has to be some type of change because even though we've been this inept for this long, even though we were just 1-1 going into the home opener, that was as I've missed, maybe 2 or 3, 4 USC home games in the last 15 years. At their best, at their peak, Pete Carroll, that crowd before the game, during the game, sounded like that. And that's something special. That's something special that you need to keep feeding. And you keep starving a work animal, eventually they're just not going to work. And you keep giving them this hope over and over again with these players and AP and this and that. And it comes down to the players showing up because it's there. Because last season, even though there was nothing to play for playoff wise, there was something to play for to make sure that AP got the job. Now that he got the job, what I saw on Sunday was complacency. There wasn't that hair on fire. Every single person, every single guy, laser focused, hair on fire. Because I need to do this for AP because AP's the coach now. He's the official coach now. So we all know these guys. We all know these guys in the gym. They love to spar against people that were newer. They love to spar with people that were under them. They never liked to spar up. And when they did, they got their ass kicked. Who are we going to be? And what, as fans, are we going to put up with? We saw it when we were fed up with Josh McDaniels, right? And guys are going up into Mark Davis's face and, telling him to fucking, get rid of Josh McDaniels. And he's like, oh, use your head.
He's
and
smart.
Finally, who is advising AP that this offense is okay for you to be okay with? I'm not going to say it again, but it's something that AP as a head coach needs to nip in the bud right away. Just like I don't have a problem with him calling guys out, because I watched some tape, some stuff I've seen on Twitter, and I finally was able to get the all 22 this morning. And I've watched some plays, and Trevon Merrick, you're on notice. Hell, Davante Adams a couple times didn't block. Didn't seem like he was interested in blocking. Jack Jones, we've all seen that play. Mail it in. Lack of effort is something that you cannot. Effort is not score dependent, right? You have to have the same effort no matter what, because it shows up on tape when there's just a little bit of effort that you're not giving. It shows up.
And if you're Antonio Pierce, you're not the head coach because you're some defensive genius, some X and O's mastermind, some long tenured head coach with a bunch of history, a handful of rings and championships. You're there literally because you can motivate. That's your primary thing. That's why you're a head coach, is the team believed in you and played hard for you. That's the reason why you're a head coach in the National Football League, one of 32 jobs on planet Earth. You were a run-of-the-mill, no one knew who you were linebacker coach this time last year, and you became head coach because of your ability to push this team, motivate them, and get them to play their best. If you can't do that,
you're useless.
Why the fuck are you here? Why are you here? This was supposed to carry you as you learned how to be a head coach. You're gonna make some mistakes. You're gonna make some personnel decisions that are, Telesco's being personnel guy, but you know what I mean. Like, you'll make some moves that didn't make sense. You'll call some timeouts when you shouldn't. You'll be out strategized mid-game by some seasoned coaches, and we were semi okay with that as part of the learning curve. It's like, well, you'll make it up by getting the most out of these guys, right? You'll waste a couple challenge flags, but goddamn, these guys are going to play hard in the fourth quarter and win us some games. If they're not going to play hard for you, you have no role, AP. They're like, you are contributing nothing if you can't get these guys motivated. That's what you're here for.
If your team doesn't come to play, that's the head coach's fault. Especially when you're not, like you said, some offensive guru or some defensive mastermind or something like that. If you're like a John Harbaugh type guy and your guys don't play hard, then you have serious problems. If you're a Mike Tomlin, who was like, he was a defensive assistant, but he was a receiver in college, and he was more of a special teams guy too, but he got a head coach. If you can't motivate your guys, if you can't get your guys riled up to play hard every single play, what are you doing? That's the model. Those are two very successful, very long-term head coaches who weren't seen as gurus on one side or the other of the ball, but their teams always showed up to play, and they always played hard. You knew it was always going to be a fight, win, lose, or draw. Those are your models now, AP. Be that, and you can have a long, long, long coaching career.
And if it sounds like we're being dramatic, dude, we just got blown out by the worst team in football, and we're still kind of like, is that even the worst loss of the last 2.5 seasons? Right? Like the Jeff Saturday game, the Baker Mayfield on 2 days notice game, 3-0 Vikings game. Like, we got blown out by a team that was consensus worst in football, brand new quarterback, injuries everywhere, in our home opener. And we're like, yeah, I saw worse like less than a year ago. Like, we're not being dramatic. Like, these are some devastating losses. And a lot of other franchises, heads would roll after this. Heads would roll after something like this. Now we're like, well, maybe we'll change quarterback. Like, we're just so beaten down by it that it's just like, oh, standard operating procedure. Yeah, we get embarrassed. Rory called it in our text chain right after the Ravens game. Oh, it'll be the most Raiders thing ever if we go on the road, beat the 9-point favorite Ravens, and then come home and in the home opener and lose to the worst team in football. It'd just be a Raider. It'd be the Raiders' way. Like, we were emotionally prepared for it. But that should not be a thing.
It was in my head. It was in my head, and I didn't want to speak it into existence, but it was always in the back of my head. That's why you didn't see me all super jacked up and like even asked the people that I met, guys, I wasn't super jacked up for the game. I'm like, Andy Dalton's going to play better than Bryce Young did, and we got to go out there and we got to play a good game, and we should win because we're more talented if we play a good game. And we didn't play a good game.
All right. Well, this has been one of the more depressing out of Windbag shows, which is uncharacteristic of us. We promise we'll turn things around. We'll make things fun, right? Just because the Raiders suck doesn't mean we have to be boring. We'll do a live. Yeah.
So wait. Ultimately, like I said in the post-game show, we go out there and we beat the Browns, even if it's a 1-point victory. If we win at the end of 4 weeks, we are 2-2. As long as we've learned something from those 4 games, 2-2, there's 11 1-2 teams in the NFL right now. Mm-hmm. Like there's a lot of teams that are 1-2. So right now, I mean, statistically, we're still the number 7th ranked for the playoffs. Like, we're not completely out of it if we snap out of it and start playing the way we need to play. So it's not doom and gloom. It is if we continue to do what we've been doing the first 3 games. If we keep doing that, line up, 3 yards in a cloud of dust shit, that's not going to work. You have to fool the defense. You have to trick the defenses. And if you're not willing to do that, if you're not willing to be more dynamic offensively, then yeah, this is who we're going to be. And if you're not going to put the effort in defensively, every player, every play, yeah, this is who we're going to be. But just like the season isn't over after the loss to the Panthers, it wasn't won on the win after the Ravens. It's still very early for us to be able to turn things around. And we have the time. We have 13 games after this next game. Let's see what this next game looks like. And if it's a lot of the same, then we're in really, really, really deep trouble.
And if we're in really, really deep trouble, Soda will do something really fun and funny to turn our spirits around. You know what I mean? Like show you his ball sack or something crazy. Because he's a member of this team and he cares. He's committed. I know that about him. He's loyal. So we didn't do anything on the preview of the Browns game. We'll do a live show later this week. We're thinking Friday night-ish. I'll be in Paris, so we'll make it
gay Paris
inverted, right? I'll wear a
emphasis on the gay.
I'll wear a beret and eat a baguette while we're doing it, just so it feels right.
Hey man, I had a banh mi for lunch today. Them French baguettes, man. Good.
I will say, dude, there's no better example of how atrocious American food is, just like filled with nitrates and fillers and preservatives and shit, until you go to like a European country, France, Italy, something like that, where there's all these laws where all has to be fresh. When I go to Paris, I eat my body weight in cheese, dough, desserts, beer for like 4 straight days. I always lose like 5 pounds. Because it's quality food. Like, it's not
preservatives and all that.
Yeah, it's not like you're eating carbs and dairy. Like, yeah, it's like straight from the fucking teat of the cow, and 3 minutes later it's cheese, and I'm eating that. You know what I mean? And then it's like the bread was baked 45 minutes ago with no preservatives, no.
It's the same thing. Like, when I used to go to Mexico all the time, and I'm not talking to like fucking Cabo or Chicha. I'm talking like Mexico, right? If you've never if you never paid for toilet paper by the square, you've never been to real Mexico. Okay. You eat just like that. The tortillas are like corn that you've ground and mixed with water and salt right then and there.
It was from corn that was grown right there.
Yeah, it's right. Oh, that's right there. The beans, like the stalks are right there. Everything. The rice is like we get it from right. Everything.
There's the mom of the pig that made the carnitas.
Yeah, the freaking goat cheese that you're eating on your quesadilla. Yeah, it came from that goat right there.
Yeah,
it's like it's so good, dude. I freaking love.
It's how humans should eat. That's
rancho,
why we're all
the rancho.
We're unhealthy because of our diet and the stress of watching the Raiders. But that's going to turn around. We'll turn things around.
Bro, I try. The one thing that Rafi told me after the game, he's like, I can't find myself to not let a loss like this affect me really bad. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, look, maybe it's because I've been doing this for 5 years now. I don't let it affect me that bad. Like it's not constantly with me the way it used to be. I'm able to like compartmentalize it. Now, when I get into the show, yeah, I let it loose. But after I'm done with the show, I play with the cats, clean the place a little bit, cook a little dinner, whatever. And it's not constantly going to be in my mind.
Yeah. You do that, and I wash it down with some brown. This is over, straight to the scotch. And until then, knock on wood if you're with me. Hey, you made it to the end of our video. Great job. I know you want more. Go ahead and click the next video. And if you're feeling crazy, go ahead and subscribe.